So as we talk about your songwriting, let's move into this new album. Would you mind saying the title for me?
Ilum.
Ilum. And what does that refer to?
This theoretical primordial matter of the universe. It's pretty open and vague to interpretation, but it fits within the realm of the story.
So Ilum came out at the end of October through Willowtip. Mitch, when we did our Q&A, you were handling most of the songwriting on the first Sunless album and mentioned that you wanted to open up the songwriting to be more collaborative and include the other members. Is that in fact what happened with Ilum?
Yeah, that is what happened with the first album, Uraka. So much time was spent writing before the whole lineup had been solidified that I had just gotten through most of the material on my own or working a little bit with Notch and Ben. But by the time Uraka came out, we had the full lineup established. And it did change throughout the writing process for Ilum. But because we had the solidified lineup, other members were contributing more throughout that whole time. And it wasn't just me kind of off on my own doing writing. We still stuck to our similar approach that we took with the first album, which is that we usually have a main songwriter for each song who contributes the guitar and the bass. So it stayed true to that approach. But in the writing for Ilum, Lucas contributed more songs. So it has, I'd say, a wider variety of types of songs and sounds. And there's more exploration going on there, even just because of that, multiple people contributing versus mostly just one.
So if I'm understanding you, you guys are still writing full songs more or less. It's just the division of labor is split more evenly. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yep.
That's correct.
So typically, how does a song come together for you guys? Do you start with riffs and arrange them yourselves or individually, and then bring the pre-production or the demos into the rest of the band?
Yeah, we send a lot of ideas back and forth. I'd say we pretty much complete a song before we share it with everybody, unless we get too excited and want to just be like, hey, check out this half of a song so far.
That rarely happens, though.
Rarely, yeah. Usually we try to work through an entire song, all right, guitar and bass in its entirety, and I'll send it to Mitch and Taylor for them to listen to and add ideas or changes. We'll make some changes to arrangements and such afterwards. But yeah, Mitch does the same thing. He'll send a guitar and bass to me. It's pretty rare that I end up changing any of the guitar riffs. I might just change very, very minute details to it just to feel more like my playing, or if I pick up on adding some more details or flourishes within it that weren't maybe there before.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it was a great addition to the band and sort of just transition into the process we have now, because for the writing of Uraka, I was pretty much just tabbing all of this stuff out in Guitar Pro. And when we linked up with Lucas, we told him this is kind of how we've been operating, writing in Guitar Pro, sharing these files and, building the songs out that way. And Lucas just said, oh, great. Yeah, I've been using Guitar Pro for years as well. So he started doing the same, writing his own songs on guitar and bass that way, just exactly how I had been. And then when Taylor joined, it was kind of the same thing. We just presented our songs, or at least the new material. He had the recordings of Uraka to listen to and learn that way. But for the material on Ilum, we presented our tabs, and Taylor actually hadn't used Guitar Pro as much as we had, but it was a huge benefit to the band and the writing to get him on board with Guitar Pro and being able to work on ideas pretty much completely independently and develop songs that way. Whereas before, Ben wasn't as into using tabbing software as a writing tool. So the drums would be written in person at the practice space. And luckily, I guess for the pandemic, Taylor's ability to just pick up Guitar Pro that quickly allowed us to just keep writing throughout all of last year, which I don't think we would have been able to do otherwise.
Right. Yeah. Similar to Mitch and Lucas. I mean, well, I suppose you guys probably work some things out on the actual instrument, but like writing for Ilum and even looking forward, writing for album 3, I compose everything beforehand. I don't usually sit down behind the kit and come up with ideas organically. It's usually a thought process that then I tab out and work from there.
Now, Taylor, do you have an approach to coming up with the drum patterns once you've heard these mostly completed songs?
I can't say that I do. I mean, I just listen to them over and over and over and over again until something strikes me. Like, you know, I mean, some parts, like Lucas might say, yo, this has to be a blast beat. Section D has to be a blast beat, like end of story. And I'll say, okay, that's cool. But and that's nice too. Basically like me jumping in sort of in the middle of Ilum's writing process, because, you know, half of this album was written with Ben still in the band. And so I had to learn those parts and sort of take them apart and change them in some ways to fit my style, or just make things playable the way I wanted to play them. And then the latter half of the album was kind of the drum composition was kind of a mix, not kind of, it was a mix between myself, Lucas, and Mitch. We all contributed to writing drums on Ilum. And it's really cool. But going forward, I told these guys, I'm doing everything. I'm writing all the drums except for that one blast beat section Lucas really wanted. But yeah, in terms of my process, I mean, really it is just listening and just trying to be thoughtful. And, you know, am I going to accent certain riffs? This section could be super heavy or it could be super mellow, really depending on how the drums go, you know, things like that. So sometimes I'll throw a couple ideas together for a particular section. I'll try to finish the whole song, and then I'll have little placekeepers where, hey, by the way, I wrote, you know, 2 or 3 different beats for this section. See what you guys think, and we'll sort of discuss it that way. But yeah, it's just me basically thinking a lot and listening a lot, and very, very occasionally getting on the kit and seeing just what comes out. But I really tend to I like to think more and write in the tab software first before I put, you know, sticks to heads.
So we should talk some more about how Taylor joined the band.
Sure, yeah. Like we were mentioning before, about midway through 2018, shortly after our tour with Geigen, Ben let us know that he'd be stepping down from the band.
Ben actually let us know before the tour.
Oh, right.
And then, so we knew we had some time to think about it, and Ben stuck around for the tour and a few last shows here locally. So It allowed us to reach out, and we honestly didn't really know of anybody locally. I mean, Ben is just an awesome drummer. There's a lot of great drummers here, but every drummer is in 5 bands. So we weren't really sure who we were going to get, and everybody just kept pointing to Taylor. He was playing with this band Aziza, and so we asked him, came down to try out, and
the rest is history.
Did a pretty good job, good enough job.
And we actually went to Taylor's practice space to audition him, I guess, and it was a huge upgrade in terms of facilities. We moved out from a small little room, and Taylor already had kind of a pro studio that he had set up that Aziza was practicing out of. And I'd met Taylor at a couple shows prior to auditioning him, and saw Aziza play a couple times while he was in that band. And I remember, I think one of the first times was in some basement in Minneapolis. And I just was very impressed that I could just still hear everything Taylor was doing, even in this, not ideal sound scenario, and was just very impressed. And luckily we were able to find somebody local who could do it and wasn't over invested in too many bands. Lucas and I were pretty concerned initially that we might have to outsource the drumming on the second record and just have someone do it remotely who we knew, just because we didn't want to delay the recording and the release of the album any longer than we needed to. But it was a saving grace that we found Taylor relatively quickly.
Yeah, not just, we just jive really well. Like, it was an immediate connection, I think, between all of us. Like, I don't think we've ever had like a band argument.
Not really.
That it's just, we just meshed. We meshed musically, and also, our personalities are, well, they're certainly different, but, we're all, mature people, and we just discuss things, and ultimately we just
fast friends.
Yeah, we're fast friends, man. It's great.
And Taylor, from the other side, were you pretty familiar with Sunless music?
Not at all. Not at all. I'd heard a couple songs and thought, wow, that's complex. And when Mitch hit me up, whatever. We ran into each other at shows here and there, but then, Mitch had come out to a couple of Aziza shows, and then hit me up on Messenger or something, and asked me to audition. And I thought, oh man, I got to start practicing. It was definitely an adjustment. I hadn't been really exploring that type of technical music, and so it was definitely a learning curve, especially learning Ben's parts. Talk about a monster drummer. So much respect for Ben. And so, it was a crash course, and it was crunch time. I worked hard and just practiced constantly, and there you go. Here we are.
And so, with the challenging nature of the music and the adjustments you had to make, what was the appeal of joining Sunless?
Well, I suppose if you just want one word, it was the challenge. And that's the first thing that comes to mind. But the music is absolutely fantastic. So had it been just fantastic, sort of straight ahead, boring metal, I probably wouldn't have been as enthusiastic about it. I want to create and explore and push myself all the time in all aspects of life. But it musically, for sure, it's one of those things, like, you don't really know what you're capable of doing until you just dive in and try doing it. And that's what Sunless was for me, was, oh wow, this is going to be very difficult. I don't know how I'm going to play these parts or learn them, but then you just put your head down and you do it, and you surprise yourself at what you're capable of doing.